Buddhism, in principle, is very simple. To free oneself from body and mind, that's all. And the rest will take care of itself. Yeah, it is so simple but difficult, of course, because our imprisonment in mind and body is very deeply rooted. It has quite a substantial reason. All the karma binding us into life after life, existence after existence, recreating new karmic bonds, new karmic unresolved stuff. So in this video I wanted to speak about a different thing. There is this Dhamma talk, Buddha versus Theravada. Quite a long charged talk. We were watching it in a group, and I noticed that some of the people were overloaded, so to say, with that. It's an important talk, as I said, for me, mainly for me, but it can bring some clarity for many people who are divided into different groups of practice in the Theravadin direction. Still, this may bring some clarity and peace also, and respect, to respect each other in their own practice. So, therefore, I want in this short talk make a summary what actually are the salient point, the crucial point in this quite a long talk, Buddha versus Theravada. As it comes to my mind, I did not prepare it, but as it comes, so be it. What is the difference? It is the development of Dhamma, of the teaching, during the first centuries, which of course is nowhere directly recorded. We know only in a second way of reflecting what probably took place in these years. It must have been quite a dramatic development, actually, and in the situation of oral tradition. That's so different. On one side, Buddha was, of course, supporting solitude, viveka, for practice, but on the other hand, the necessity to share the knowledge, what Buddha said, by talking together, reciting and talking together, was a sheer necessity. Very different today. You can have it in everything you can have in your laptop. And actually the exchange with the Sangha members, be it lay people or the monastic Sangha, is not really essential. And I was witnessing very often, it is just the socializing of the monks, and some monks even resist any mention of Dhamma in their talking, just blah, 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 blah. There was even a kind of tendency not to talk about Dhamma in between the monks in the Thai tradition, because probably there was no one to kind of channel it in the right way, and the monks got into dispute. Of course, there are many unclarities in understanding, and this is one of them. The difference between the original teaching, which is mostly authentically conserved in the suttas, and the tradition, the Theravadin tradition, together with Abhidhamma, which has a different accentuation. This is the first thing. which I would mention here as a summary of that long talk. There has been a shift of accentuation in these first centuries, because Buddha was very relying on correct thinking, correct application of the mind apparatus, even with imaginations, even with directed reflections, contemplating different things in the mind with the thinking, to cultivate the mind in a different direction, in the Dhamma direction. And Buddha put lots of emphasis on that. And what the Abhidhamma is now in the Theravada, 250 years later, where there is a new kind of emphasis on direct experience of the mind and body, without interpretation of thinking, not going into the conceptual things, to take the actual experience right now, here and now, to be aware of it directly, without thinking about it, just to see it as it evolves in the mind, in the body, moment after moment. You know, this is the crucial difference in the approach to the praxis, in the way of the original teaching and in the way which developed in the Abhidhamma. Abhidhamma itself, as today it is very often practiced, is just study of that, which is actually a step back into the kind of application of thoughts, just memorizing the Abhidhamic structures and lists of phenomena, and that's actually way back. And in my understanding, it is a confusion actually, if it is not applied as an analysis of that what is happening in the mind and body right now. I never really went very deep into Abhidhamma, and what I encountered even in Burma was just endless study of the lists of mental factors, the kinds of consciousness, all the kinds of rupa, the materiality, how it combines together and so, but there was hardly any mention to really apply this kind of theoretical knowledge to analyze what is right now creating this moment of presence, which set of consciousness and mental factors and the rupas is actually manifesting right now, arising and falling away every moment new again. That would be probably the envisaged, or how to say in English, the meant, that what was meant, how to apply the Abhidhamma knowledge into analytical dissection, or how to say, the application of this analysis to see the mind and to see the body from a position of awareness which is not part of the five khandhas of the mind and body. To wake up this kind of awareness which is conscious of the mind and body. You know, and this is the whole alpha omega of vipassana practice, which is so glorified in Burma and in a Western approach generally. You know, this Goenka practice is not yet so. It is also founded in Abhidhamma, by the way. It is a very specific part of an Abhidhamic truth that body actually is paramatta. Body awareness is paramatta by itself, the only one. So lots of Goenka and Ubakin practice is actually direct awareness of the bodily sensations. Venerable Mahasi added also bodily postures, bodily movements. Being aware of bodily sensations is paramattha. And most of the other things is not paramattha. Also, being aware of the mind is also paramattha. Because you are not in the mind. To be aware of the mind means not to be in the sensual consciousness, not to be in the ordinary mental consciousness, which creates thoughts and images in the mind and all the usual stuff, this self-talking, that's all mental consciousness. So you have to wake up to the awareness which is outside of the mind, to be aware of the mental processes. This is the crucial point of the late development in Theravada. This is Theravada, being aware of body and mind. Which is direct paramattha, you know, this separation from mind and body is the paramattha area, which is which doesn't use normally conceptual working of the mind, which is directly directed to the mind and body, perception of mind and body, which means to be aware of the sensory input as direct as possible without further processing by the sanya, by the perception. As I said in the end of this video, Buddha versus Theravada, the vipassana awareness goes to the very early stage of sanya, when it is not yet evolved into conceptual names and further recognitions. You know, it is a very early stage where there is not yet the self on it. This would be a very advanced vipassana awareness, which is so precise and so immediate that it is catching the arising sankharas, the mental formation, the consciousness, right as it comes, not yet really worked out by sanya, by the neurons. We can take it also neurologically. Just the very early stage, and the self is not yet there. Therefore, the anatta in this vipassana practice, at a certain levels of it, will be stronger and clearer, and so there will be just awareness of that as it happens, and the self is not yet there, because self will be put on the experience in the later stages of the perception of the sanya. That's like the process. It's already recognized. It's perhaps even already the name on it. I am seeing camera now, you know. So when there comes that far that the sanya already has recognized the object, that's probably the stage when the sanya puts the I see the camera. You know, these are quite lonely talks. I am here just with the camera, nobody around. Sometimes quite difficult to keep the line of the talking. You can try it just to talk to the lens. Not so easy, actually. We don't record Dhamma talks in public in this monastery. So this was a very important clarification, which is actually alpha omega of the whole talk, Buddha versus Theravada. That Buddha is using the cultivation of the mind. And of course the modern neurology is supporting this idea very much, the plasticity of the brain, this old idea in psychology, in neurology, that in the childhood the brain forms and becoming stagnant for the adulthood, that was a completely wrong idea. It is completely overcome by modern research that the brain, even with adult people, is learning all the time. And what is also just reconfirmed that Buddha is right, that what we think of very often will be stronger. So the Buddha's anusati, this contemplation, actually is strengthening these pathways in the brain to become more dominant, to begin to think in the lines of Dhamma. That's very supported by modern neurology. So the Buddha is right again. And this is the deficiency in the dry practice of vipassana, that it is going directly towards very early stage of perception and does not really cultivate the mind for our everyday life. And therefore it is what I would again support and underline so very much. Both are right. The vipassana is right when it is practicing together the whole Dhamma as it was taught by the Buddha. And those, especially the Thai forest tradition, is now also finding the way to becoming aware of the mind. It is not very long ago when said that only anagamis can become aware of the mind. This is probably some quite old idea in the original forest tradition of Thailand, certainly overcome by the new developments in Thai Buddhism. I was recently watching the Dhamma talks from Ajahn Sumedho. He is very much underlying this becoming aware of, be aware of your body and mind, which is actually vipassana. And he would say, you are the consciousness. I would be more precise than that. Consciousness, even the sensory consciousness, is consciousness. And so we can better understanding with these two layers of awareness. I call it the sensory consciousness, the mental consciousness, and the awareness, which would be the aim, according to Ajahn Sumedho. As I understand it, to bring your anchor, that what you are, if with this self, that's a little bit tricky. The self in this area of awareness is actually self, not self, beyond both of this. But be sure it is not some kind of a blankness or nothing at all. So the teachers are talking about it as they interpret their own experience. Some would call it the beingness, to be, and it means it is this kind which is over mind and body, outside of the five khandhas, which is the liberation, basically. My idea that Nibbana is nothing square. It's not only nothing, it's nothing of nothing. Nothing square. That was quite helping in the beginning, not to jump on some higher self, to mistake it for the liberation, because the consciousness has different layers. Not in the Abhidhamma, because the Abhidhamma goes for the molecular or atomic structure of consciousness, and we know it from the nature. If you take a tree, so that's the tree for you. If you go to the cellular level with the microscope, the tree disappears. And you are in another world of functioning of all these growing cells and dividing cells, and the nutriments coming to the cells or in the body itself. That's the cellular truth. It's just a different level of the truth. If you go to the atomic level, again, everything's different. If you go to the subatomic level, again, completely different. Quantum world, different rules. And all these are actually truths. So Abhidhamma goes for the molecular or atomic truths, and building on that, there is only one conscious moment at the time, arising and passing away. This extremely quick oscillation, which creates the mental formations. That's already the cellular level of paramattha. There is no self there. And then you come to the everyday life, and you are here, clearly. That all has its own kind of truth in itself, and Buddha is using this paramattha to detach from the mind and body. It's one of the strategy. It's a good question if insight is the only way to attain realization of Nibbana, to become free. The strategy can be different. Buddha would put to see the Four Noble Truths as probably the crucial element of the liberation, which would be this view from the liberated awareness back to the mind and body, to see the five khandhas from this Nibbanic perspective. These three things will be very clear. It's very ephemeral, changeable, it's unsatisfactory, and not self. You have it. In this paramattha level, it is automatic, clear. So Buddha is using insight, but again, different accentuation. That was also what I was talking a lot in this Buddha versus Theravada, that in the original Buddha's suttas, Buddha's time, we have to imagine Buddha's time. 2,500 years ago, the people's mind were different. The psyche of these people were different. More simple, more healthy, not broken so many times. And my suspicion, my argument is that even today some original tribes, even of the Indians, but of course now Indians already lost, but there was a kind of a healthiness of the mind when you knew something that was changing your behavior, really. In the way, in the suttas, Buddha quite often speaks about the learned people, those who already listened to his doctrine, to his teaching, informed, we would say probably informed. They were informed, therefore they were very close to the realization already. Today, nothing far again. We are so splitted, we have so much information, but we live completely differently. You know, we know long time that the smoking is ruining your health, and the people continue to smoking. You know, taking this example, like how split it is our mind today. We know, the more we know, we are farther away from the realization today. You know, if we are loading too many things in our intellectual mind, we are not getting closer to the liberation, to the realization of liberation. In the Buddha's time, these things were still in a healed position, much more than today. You know, it's difficult to speak in these black and white parameters, because certainly in Buddha's time there was already beginning the split as well. But generally speaking, it was like that. So therefore Buddha was cultivating so much emphasis on cultivating the mind by conceptual knowledge, and the people were already very near realization, a little bit meditation, and they got it. Today, you know, we can study Abhidhamma 100 years. If we do not apply it to the actual living, we are not getting closer to realization. Perhaps karmically. To be busy 100 years with the Buddha's teaching, probably in some next life, it will bring some fruits, hopefully. But rather, what the karma will carry to the next life, have you been attached to those Abhidhamic lists, or you were learning the lists with wisdom? If you have been attached, so rather you moved away from well, who knows. So the summary: don't be stubborn, and with this knowledge that whatever is your kind of a guiding way of practice, stay with that, because probably it suits you in some way quite well. And to change too much unnecessarily, that's not very healthy. So stay with that what you are doing, but open up, complement for the complementary balance of your Dhamma path, between the cultivation of your mind and a direct insight. So that's the message for today.